So after that complete brain lapse for like the past 2 parts of this post-game section, we need to go back through levels a third time to show off what the hell these Spectra doors even are.
Also, I like that the little 808 drone has its own superhero hat.
Oh yeah, all of 808's costumes have like some special accoutrement to them that like reflects the current costume.
We really don't know what to expect.
You know, like if you like with the crown, like the princess crown, actually, that actually is on the 808 orb as well when you look at it.
I didn't notice in the last video.
It's a very subtle detail. Anyway, welcome to the Spectra Hub room. Or not the hub itself, just the Spectra Room, really.
Giving me some weird Kingdom Hearts 2 vibes here.
Like you're about to enter a data organization fight?
A little bit, yeah.
Well, it's not that, but instead, we got DMC secret missions.
I cannot believe I didn't realize those weren't in here.
To be fair, when I first played this, neither did I. But that's just because I greatly underestimated how much DMC there would have been in this game. But yeah, what this is, don't touch the floor, as it says. If you stay on the floor past X amount of time, you fail the challenge.
Because, yeah, that's one thing that a lot of these kind of character action games didn't bother with, which is kind of weird.
Yeah. Like, DMC bothers with it only out of legacy reasons, because if we're being honest, it's more of a Hideki Kamiya thing. Like,
yeah, that's true.
DMC 1, Bayonetta, Wonderful 101, they all have this shit. And in the case of like Kamiya himself, he very much has them included in because he wants to like actually have like a space to push players to like understand and focus on a specific aspect of the gameplay systems rather than just having them mess around with like the entire sandbox and potentially like forget that a feature or two exists.
Yeah.
You know, like staying off the floor. That's an easy thing to remember because it kind of like shows you, oh yeah, you know, there are ways to still keep yourself airborne via things, you know, like jam combos or just like knowing to use the magnet to launch yourself to the next enemy, and the fact that there are specific combos that are designed to like keep you airborne and all that stuff. Like, it's valuable. More tickets and more gears. At least the very nice thing that I appreciate because of how these are designed as something you find in the post-game rather than during the main game. You know, they give you that very, very helpful option when you're about to exit the Spectra Room to either go back to the stage if, you know, you want to continue and get, like, a better rank or any collectibles you've missed. Or, in this case, where I got every collectible except the one that is a reward for each of these Spectra doors, you can just choose the option to go back to the hideout. It's very nice.
The user-friendliness of this game is ridiculous. And the fact, as I said, the fact it's not in every game today is baffling, shocking.
Yeah. So now here's a time battle where we can only deal damage after we have done a successful parry. And it lasts for 12 beats. You know, effectively 3 measures, you know, going by how everything is in 4/4 time.
Yep. I take it your rank doesn't really matter.
Well, you do get ranked at the end of these, but as you find is like, no matter how strict it feels, the ranking requirements feel like they are perfectly in line with the fact that you are having to operate under very heavy limitations.
Yeah.
Like, time especially, I think, is, like, super generous to the point where, like, you have to get really close to when time runs out. Or even stuff when, like, during the previous challenge where you have to stay off the ground as long as possible. Like, like the time threshold that it takes before I think it decides to bump you down from S to A in that category is way more generous than it would be led to believe because they don't give you a lot of time to stay on the ground to begin with. Yeah, very, very reasonable. Like these sets of like Spectra rooms, I will say, like when I played them the first time, I think by virtue of the fact that this is something you do in the post-game and you've gotten a good handle on all the combat fundamentals already, that like actually getting S ranks on them is not the hard part.
Yeah.
But it's what comes after you clear all of these 8 Spectra rooms that is actually just one step above, where it goes, okay, now you actually have to work for it a bit more. Because, oh yes, there is more after these 8 rooms. Just you wait. This is part of what makes the post-game so amazing to me. Oh yeah, and now here's one where we can only use, like, parry counterattacks, which means, like, you got to rely on your assists a lot. This is actually something where I think you actually made mention or like asked the question back in track 2 about whether or not you could...
Is there any achievables for just using your partners to deal damage?
Yeah, so there is to an extent, obviously, but like it's the sort of thing where because of how specific it is, you can't really use it in a normal fight of the game without it like giving you a bad score. Here, this is an environment where it is absolutely designed that you have to use only this option. And as such, the ranking is not going to punish you just because you have to hang back most of the time waiting for the right opportunity. Because I mean, even with like the remaining amount of time is pretty rough. Like, look at that. I got really close, but that's still an S rank on time.
Wow, they are just... They have lowered the requirements dramatically.
Yeah. It's like... But there's a very good reason for that, because there is more stuff like these after like the initial 8 that you're made aware of, and they do expect more out of you.
Yeah.
Like, the post-game... being what it is, it contributes a lot to why I love this game so much and like crowned it like my game of the year, essentially, because the post game, like, there were multiple times where I felt like, okay, in any other game, like the post game exploration aspect would just stop here, that part of the journey,
Yeah.
Most games aren't really going to go the full 9 yards the same way that something like Ninja Gaiden Black does, where every difficulty up has like its own value to it and is part of the overall journey. But here it's just more like, no, they just keep giving you a bit more breadcrumbs as you go along. It's like, okay, now do this. Okay, now do this, but harder. Okay, now try this other thing we got.
Now put it all together.
Yeah. Anyway, this one's kind of the same style as the previous one we did, except, instead of parry counters, which by this point, the game, I think, kind of expects you to rely more on parry counters just because of the fact that, like, it's better positionally just to stay put and press the button. But now it kind of reminds you, oh yeah, you have a dodge, and dodging on beat gives you the same counter follow-ups that the parry version does.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think you've done many dodge counters.
No, the game, I think kind of for the worse, just ever so slightly does kind of condition you to rely way more on the parry and its benefits more than what the dodge has to offer. And I think this is like kind of one of their ways of reminding you that it still exists and is worth doing. Especially when, the fact that there are enemies that will straight up, like, use fire attacks.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got our final bit of our reverb gauge. We've got a completed reverb core. So there we go. 8 sections. That's worth two max power reverb attacks, with the maximum cost being 4 bars. But there we go. We're only halfway through these first set of Spectra Room challenges. Not too bad, all things considered. But I appreciate, again, like the consideration of like trying to get you to mess around with like specific skills that you may not have had to think as much about. For instance, overkill bonuses for jam combos. That was kind of an abrupt cut because I had actually failed on the first attempt, so it was not a perfect take, as you might imagine. Because this one, the nature of jam combos and getting the overkill bonus, it does obviously require a bit of setup. That's why they give you the elite enemies to start. They can take the punishment. Because it's all about knowing, okay, how do you want to pace out your combos so you get enough reverb gauge to call in your assist for the jam combo. That's kind of how it works. Because feasibly, all you really need to worry about is building up to like one as long as you're able to consistently get up to like 1 reverb bar, as it were, just to call in the assist, then that basically locks them in so that whatever combo you decide to do afterwards is probably going to cause them to go into an overkill state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, the overkill's not something that's really come up too often.
No, it's purely, you know, for like score purposes, and as well as like giving you opportunities to like style on enemies where you think that you can actually like do some cool stuff with it. Because obviously, yeah, it is. Oh yeah, this is the most sadistic one. Fight without moving the analog stick at all, and you would be but you know, we're still pretty potent as far as being able to do it, because you know there's still ways to get your juggles in. You know, you can use magnets to like cross the distance entirely.
Yeah, turning around might be a bit of a problem.
Well, that's why you use the camera, because the important thing with how magnet works is that it shoots to, you know, like, not only does it shoot to like whatever's like the nearest most appropriate enemy on screen, but like the emphasis is on screen, you know, because if you want to isolate a particular target, you just angle the camera in a way that, you know, it guarantees that without a doubt it will focus on that enemy. But yeah, just use parry a lot, you know, magnet to close the distance, as well as vault over so you can then like get an easy combo off without them interrupting you.
Yep.
You can use the dash, you know, because even though that moves Chai, that doesn't use the analog stick, so it counts. It's a technicality. Yeah. And we all know how using the light attack after a dodge instantly goes into a launcher, so that gives you air combo opportunities. Like as much as it seems like a sadistic puzzle, it's not so sadistic when it makes you remember, oh yeah, this is all the stuff you can do even without having to use the analog stick. I mean, there's not even like directional moves when you think about it. This is all dial strings.
Yeah, because I was thinking, obviously, Devil May Cry, going back to that. Your opener for most combos is going to be Stinger, which is double tap in the direction.
Yeah. Well, double tap in the reboot. But the other games are smart by having it be something where you have to hold lock on, so that you get that. You know, you got to use Stinger, or if they're already close to you, you pull back and then press the button to do high time.
Either way, you've got your you know, locked into using the stick anyway.
Yeah, you got to use the stick all the times, which is especially like difficult to juggle if you're also wanting to do constant style switching.
Yep.
Anyway, here's a classic one. Defeat all enemies without taking damage. No problem. I spent the entire main game doing this. It's fine.
Yeah, I was going to say, oh no, the thing that you've been doing since the start of this LP.
Yeah, and it makes sense as well. And this is one of those things where, like, even because it's now in the post-game, they actually do start being a bit more devious with some of the enemy combinations. Like you saw, the Senko, which is like the crazy parasol, you know, energy field support enemy, as well as one of the sabers that has fire. So you can't touch the fire, and then that asshole's going to keep putting up a barrier around it so you can't hit him. Like, yeah, you can imagine how much the hazards would pile up. And I kid you not, when it comes to the challenges that come after these Spectra Rooms, they push that idea of like enemy composition being the biggest threat to its limit. Well, the limit as it was when the game launched, I'm going to say.
Yeah, I imagine the Bloody Tower gets a little bit tricky.
A little bit, just because of mostly because of one floor at the halfway point where they introduced like a variant of existing enemies you're already familiar with, but like they're like a boss in and of themselves. And another one that is like, oh no, the thing I've already been doing. Beat all enemies with a final just timing percentage of 85% or higher. You know, the percentage that is required to get an S rank.
Yeah, the one which is usually around about 93%.
Yeah. That said, though, like, I can see why it would be a worthy challenge in this case because of having to go up against the Firebird and the fact that, like, I think compared to most other enemies and the fact that this one is so rare and infrequent is that I often feel like I am, like, that I lose track of where the beat is because so many of what this bird does is designed to throw you off.
Plus, the time limit they give you is very generous.
Very generous because this is another thing where when you learn about how just timing works as a percentage system, it makes a lot of sense. Because it's a percentage, that means, let's say you had an encounter where it only took 5 hits to defeat an enemy, just one enemy, and you got ranked after that. If you did those 5 hits, but one of those was offbeat, congrats. You do not get the S rank for just timing. But you saw I was at 88 a while ago, and now I'm back up to 90. Sometimes, depending on how the fight is going, maybe it's not too bad to just buffer out like your actions by just simply dashing in rhythm to the beat and doing other, light hitting attacks and whatnot, just as long as you are positive that you are doing it on rhythm, just to offset all the previous times that you might have screwed up on timing in the early parts of the fight. So, yeah, obviously this is kind of reiterating a concept that, if you looked at, the ranking after each fight and cared about doing well on it, is yeah, that much is obvious as far as what the percentage thresholds are for rank. But this is the sort of thing that's kind of the best opportunity to teach you that even if you aren't finishing fights as fast as possible, it still is not a bad idea to, inflate your percentage just a bit more with some useless stuff as long as it's on beat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's supposed
time
to
go compared to the others where you've had a second and a half.
Yeah, like the fact that the time limit to work with as big as it is it was clearly intentional. So hey, that's all the Spectra Room's taken care of. I'm sure Peppermint's gonna be proud of us and that our job as a hero is done.
Well, we're gonna find out. It's been a big bowl and nothing.
What does it say?
It's encrypted, but using a cipher my mother always used. There. It's a facility under Vandalay Tower.
That was never mentioned before, but how very convenient.
Oh dear.
Looking at this, it's coordinates for another Spectra device?
Dun dun dun!
Spectra after defeating Kale! It's too early for a sequel!
Unless
Yeah,
it's
tell
connected
that to
a master
Ubisoft.
Unit, some sort of antenna.
If that thing is set to activate...
It's the real Stone-like.
I'll finish.
Oh, god damn it.
Thanks to your impressively hard work. I mean, I think that word being in parentheses is deserved. I mean, those weren't very hard challenges to begin with. They were very nice, they were nice variations on the usual combat scenario, just to kind of subtly teach you that yeah, these things are possible.
Yeah, just remind you that yes, you do have a dodge parry.
Yeah, and it's oh yeah, there are ways to guarantee that your just timing percentage will never go 85%. Sometimes the best way to do it is just to take longer. Oh yeah, and as you can see, I clearly cut ahead at this point. That I've basically bought every single chip, not really to use, just to say that I own them.
Yep.
Find some more costumes.
Other than using the money for costumes, it's just going to go to waste otherwise.
Yeah, pretty much. God, again, I still love all these fucking cosmetics. I do really hope that the Chai's granular customization can be applied to these characters if they decide to bring back costumes for the sequel, because I really because it's gonna be for I think the very end that I show it, but I do have a specific arrangement of individual cosmetic items for Chai that I have that is specifically for my look, as I like to call it. It's a very neat it's a very neat I say black and gold aesthetic that I got going for how I like Chai in my main file.
I have to say that it's impressive that they have as much customization for free without having to buy it as DLC.
Yeah. So now we get to go to the Spectra Hub, where there is another set of 8 Spectra Rooms.
Okay, yeah, this is definitely the Data Org fights.
Yeah, which means these challenges are going to be pushing us a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, don't look at me. I didn't even know this existed.
Let's just get this done.
Why did they even have a head of security?
Well, there is another thing besides these Spectra Rooms, if you want to take a look at it, but first we're going to go into each of these rooms before we check out the other thing. Because these new Spectra Rooms are going to be very familiar starting out until you realize they start putting the screws to you on some of the win conditions. Don't touch the floor. I mean, that makes enough sense, but remember that we were only fighting against those floating canister enemies. And it starts out that way, but the music is faster. So we gotta be very...
yeah, and it wasn't minutes, it was measured in seconds.
Yeah, but now the second wave is entirely ground enemies. You might have also noticed as well, as part of doing this, is that, like, as soon as I, like, landed on the ground, even for a split second, I was super fast in getting back up on the ground during the first wave, because you cannot waste a second here. This is way harder than I ever looked it to be, even though this is ostensibly the same challenge.
Yeah, this is just plain mean.
It's mean, but goddammit, it makes me a better player, so I welcome it.
I gotta say, for an opening salvo, that is,
As expected.
there's a statement of intent right there.
Oh, you don't even know the half of it. Let me put it this way. For the longest time, I'd only cared about, like, just finishing these eight Spectra Rooms, not getting the S ranks.
Yeah.
It was only when I did this LP and getting better at the game, mostly because of the arcade update, I'm going to say, because that pushes you in other ways that I found was valuable. But, like, that definitely got me to go, okay, let's not leave this unresolved. I'm getting those S's, damn it. So here we go. Beat parries, obviously, and what better way to, like, better enemies to deal with this than enemies that can just spawn enemy like the blue energy shields. So if you don't get, like, the right parry, like, attack to, you know, cancel it, then fuck, those 12 beats that you get to attack are going to be wasted.
Yeah.
Which also means, yeah, you know, like, when the energy shields are up, it's like it is pointless to have any other summon come in except Peppermint. So you gotta make sure that the timing is right and that, you know, she's not on cooldown at the wrong time. Come on, get up, asshole. Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. Yep, it's like as soon as the shield's back to Peppermint. No other option.
Yeah. At least she's got the quickest cooldown.
Yeah. And at least the second wave is a bit more acceptable to deal with just because, you know, it is Z-shielding. Macaron can deal with it, but also, even with Z-shielding, depending on what sort of attacks can hit, like Corsica's, like tornadoes or whatever, is that you can still affect the stun gauge to a certain degree. But yeah, the second wave of this challenge is, you know, a lot less of, like, a kind of a headache to keep track of, just because of how much more of, like, a, you know, an ever-present threat the electric barriers are. But hey, still S's, you know. And again, I'm still counting it even if, like, one of the categories is A. That's fine. There's, like, these Spectra Rooms don't have, like, the S with a crown. That's exclusively for end of stage results in the main game. So I consider it still fair game to treat these under the same rules as the individual choruses.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. So here we go. The same old usual fight with only the parry counter. And we have, like, less than 24 seconds.
24 seconds to go?
Yeah, something like that. But now it's like, okay, how are you expected to actually finish this? You would imagine that this is only 2 enemies. Well, you're right.
Oh.
Yeah. Some of these, I mean, again, yeah, they put the screws to you to be a bit more mean about it, but once you get past it to the other side, you kind of realize, oh, some of it was kind of more for intimidation factor than actual challenge.
Yeah, I was fully expecting it to be like, psych bitches, here's a Senko.
Yeah. So now how about a just timing score of at least 90%? This is going to require us to do, like, a lot more filling for time. Except, oh wait, we have roughly 2.5 minutes to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, fire enemies. They are always, like, the biggest danger that you gotta prioritize. Keep the flames out. Keep them locked down. You know, at the very least, just get them into their rhythm parry finishing attack as fast as possible. Like, anytime I see that orange aura, even though I know full well that, like, failing to dodge it is going to lock me into that sequence, I'm still more grateful when I see it because it means, oh, thank God, I can get this enemy out of the way.
Plus, I just noticed that the timer doesn't count down while it's attacking.
Yeah, like when it's in those particular attacks, it actually stays locked in place, which is, I'm very grateful for those.
Godsend.
But yeah, as you can imagine, with how my timing generally is, it's no surprise that I am hovering dangerously close to the required threshold, you know? I'm at least glad that it doesn't fail you if you fall below it, you know? Yeah. Like they stay true to their word. It's like you need the final just timing percentage at the end of the fight. So even if you have to play it a little bit lame just to get that percentage ever so higher, which, you know, by law of percentages, how it works is like it naturally becomes harder like the more individual like actions are being recorded. You know, like there's never going to be a chance that you can actually get it back up to 100%. That's just not how it works. But at least we're done. Oh wait, you actually got to see me fail one of those.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. Like, it's weird. There comes a point where the BPM hits like a certain speed where even though I feel like I'm on beat, there are times where like I clearly am just ever so slightly off on a hit. Mostly with the dodge inputs, I think. It might just be because of the fact that it is like it's assigned to the shoulder button. And it might just be something with like kind of the mechanism for how it registers compared to just the face button. Yeah. I'm not sure. But yeah, this seems simple. Defeat all enemies within the allotted time. How could it be? Oh, of course they'd have to throw in a Senko.
Of course. Don't beeline for him, then this is going to take another 3.5 minutes.
a minute 20. Yeah, but the fact that there's no other stipulation lets you know that, like, oh yeah, this can't just be the first wave, right? There's got to be, like, some other enemy combination that is going to make it especially difficult to keep pressure. Because, I mean, throwing a Senko at the start, that is explicitly designed as keep away. It's designed to make you waste time chasing them.
Yeah.
And turns out, yeah, as far as enemies that like to dash away and, like, keep their distance, we got like a kimono hanging out in the background. But never mind, we got to deal with, like, the sabers that deal fire damage. Okay, now I got 50 seconds to work with. Yeah. Again, this is like of the launch content, this is absolutely where they cared the most about like how much enemy composition can like determine the challenge of a fight. Something that is so easy to forget in a game where like you're expected to just wail on dudes and be stylish and cool for several hours. Yeah, unfortunately, I also got hit at the start. Even though I got the remainder of the sequence, it still didn't count. Like I think like some enemies, they're like some of the like early elite enemies with their rhythm parry attacks are like ones where I think like depending on the difficulty and part in the campaign, you can actually get away with a missed hit or two. Mm-hmm. But these are the Spectra Rooms. They're like, no, you are not going to miss a hit if you can help it.
Okay, this one again.
Return of an old favorite, and of course it's the one that would tempt you the most to constantly be moving normally.
Yep.
But instead, no. Rely on your foes, use magnets, just do not let this fucker get away.
Just corner trap him and pin him.
This is the most aggressive I have ever been towards a kimono in this entire game, I feel like. Just this entire recording. And look at that. Didn't even screw that up.
Yay.
Oh, but look, a Brutal's back.
Oh.
At least this one is less of an intimidating one compared to the kimono, or at least less of a likely enemy to tempt you to break the game, to break the missions like sole like stipulation, because it does not flash step all over the place as often. And because this one is a chump, I don't even need to bother with its rhythm parry attack. Fuck you.
Okay, now you're just getting cocky.
Whatever, I'm preparing for whatever's at the other side of that big door that is locked behind these Spectra Rooms. That said, though, we're about to see one that, when I played it for the first time, took me a long time to actually, not to get the S rank, just to survive. No damage, and these are who I have to deal with. A Senko, a Fire Saber, and an Elite series with, like, Z shielding.
Quite the motley crew.
Yeah, it's like, in some way, one way or the other, they have something that is like, two of them have, like, well, no, I think it's more concise to say they're all able to cover for their comrades in some way or the other, you know? Like the Z shielding could potentially just happen to walk in the way of whoever you're trying to get in the way of, to protect the Senko, whereas the Senko is using its umbrella to, provide energy shields, and then of course, the Fire Saber laying fire traps and all that. But whatever. I got an S rank. I was surprised when I got it on this recording, and it's what convinced me to go back to my old file and actually clean up on those rankings, because I realized, shit, if I could do it then, fuck, I could do this now. So how about 4 overkill bonuses on enemies? And you might think that's simple, but considering the enemies that they decide to throw at us, it's quite difficult to land, especially with some of the weaker enemies to start. It could be you can accidentally kill them before you even trigger an overkill on them.
Yeah.
There is at least, I believe, another wave after this, because they wouldn't expect you to try and get 4 overkills on these mooks consistently.
Yeah,
they give you plenty of time. It's 7 minutes.
Yeah, 4 overkills on 5 enemies. That's cutting a bit too thin.
Yeah. The problem is just more the fact that, it's supposed to keep you on your toes. That okay, you don't need to get overkill bonuses on all 4 of the weak enemies. But if you decide to neglect it entirely, you're gonna be hard pressed when it comes to the second round. That's the kind of challenge that the fight is trying to present you with. Because it is not going to be very possible to it's almost impossible to really get those kind of bonuses on the elite enemies that have the rhythm parry attacks because of how they're programmed. The only chance you get at overkill is if you manage to just bypass the rhythm parry to begin with. And even though it's knowing full well how much time and opportunities I have to do so, I still try to go for it anyway, but I fail. So now we have some of these elite enemies, one of which has its own rhythm parry attack, the Brutal. So there's more opportunities, but they're gonna make it not so easy to do. But fortunately, as long as you get the overkill bonuses clocked in first, it just ends the fight immediately.
Okay.
So that's a bonus, and I'm pretty sure that's the idea behind that, is that if you were to take too long, I think it's actually more if they let you finish the fight as normal, maybe it was probably something to do with the time limit. I could imagine a case where if you were fishing for overkill bonuses, you would run the risk of getting an A getting a worse rank on time. Mm-hmm. And even then, it's on that one, I got an A on time. It still took me a while.
Yeah.
But before we go to that big door, I talk about the other major thing of this room. Mm-hmm. Kale's super secret plans that he has been workshopping in this hub, trying to figure out what Spectra was going to be.
Seeing the term hype beast used makes me respect him less as a human being.
I mean, you weren't really supposed to respect him to begin with.
Yeah, I know. I managed to dip lower than that.
You dip it into the negatives.
Watch those profits roll in, baby. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's something worse than that. He had other weird ideas that seemed to be vaguely similar to other Bethesda published games, including one contributed by Zanzo, which even for all the other bad ideas that he has let Zanzo get away with, even he was like, bruh, that's too fucked up even for you.
See, I was going to say it was either going to be locking people in vaults or drilling into hell for the energy.
Yeah. So one of his ideas was Vault Tech.
Yep.
Naturally.
He strikes me as the type.
Yeah. And then other ones, including the one I talked about. Zanzo apparently got the idea for neuromods. He should not be on the board of evil executives.
Not that we found anything yet, but what if?
Jesus. Zanzo would move to Talos 1 at the earliest opportunity.
He would be he would see the plans and he'd be like, my bag is already packed.
Yeah.
Okay, but you don't actually know what we're going to be doing there. Don't care. Bag.
Yeah, I already put in my resume for psychotronics. Okay, so, yeah.
Pre-order bonuses.
Yep. Got to make use of all the crap that's piling up in R&D just to satisfy Zanzo's ego.
Look, we've got these stupid Funkos. Let's just fucking get rid of them.
Yeah. It does take me a little bit to remember where all of these logs are because they are blended in pretty well because they're on these terminals. Talking about STEM.
Of course. Putting a serial killer's brain in a machine that would send out a signal pulling everyone into a dream world created by the mind of a psychopath. And that's still the least worst of his ideas so far.
The way they're written, it's very clear that, like, he is the type of person who would never, like, bother. He would not degrade himself with the idea of typing his notes on a keyboard. He's just dictating these. Yeah. Oh, and also Deathloop.
Of course.
Yeah. Honestly, I appreciate this gag because it at least keeps consistent with the previous John Johannes directed game, in which there were also collectible items in The Evil Within 2 that were references to other, like, Bethesda published games.
Yep.
You got the Quake 1 rocket launcher as a little miniature.
Quake 1 rocket launcher, the Panzerhund from Wolfenstein.
A TranStar mug.
Yeah, I was going to say the mug from Prey as well.
Backup Spectra protocol activated.
So here's what's on the other side.
If you can read this message, it's already too late. Welcome to this
obviously suspicious room.
Compiling wireless access code. Thanks for doing the heavy lifting.
Oh, crap.
Putting Mother's cipher in there sure made you think you had it all figured out, didn't it, Peppermint?
Okay, credit where credit's due. As much as he overthinks these plans, he does have some clever moments.
Are we going to have to fight his Force Ghost?
I'll admit, I was genuinely hoping with this game that we were going to get a Father Rodin-style super secret boss that is like the hardest thing ever.
I can't crack it. Chai, you need to do something.
But I at least hope with this that, like, I would actually be down with, like, the sequel if it decides to play on the idea that, like, the events of, like, Kale Spectra Project had bigger ramifications on the rest of the world than people realized. But no, they didn't have the budget for a boss fight, so they made better use of it by writing another joke.
Chai, we saw the whole thing through 808. You didn't do anything.
Mr. Chai,
Poor scrub. So how do we fix this now that we know that, you know, just don't plug in the plug? It's that easy.
Oh, please tell me it's a sticky note. Do not use.
Do not touch.
Yes!
Now watch as someone in the sequel, like, decides to just plug it in for shits and giggles and starts this whole process up again.
That 10 out of 10. Game of the Millennium. Game of the Millennium.
Yeah. Again, it's like, I really wanted that super secret boss. Like, that would have been another thing that would, like, be a nice check mark on the list of things that this game, like, is clearly pulling from the rest of the genre it's in. But we've clearly seen that if there is, like, a good opportunity for a joke and some comedic writing, this game will not pass up the opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, another streamer mode song called Synesthesia.
Yep, again, the off-brand version of Swan, which was the off-brand version of Smashing Pumpkins. So what does that make theirs?
Yeah, there's there's a multi-layered piece of commentary right there.
Speaking of coffee.
They finally got it fixed. I wonder if they ever found that coffee technician who sabotaged it, and when he confessed, I wonder if he got off a light sentence on the fact that, like, his deeds managed to get in the way of Kale getting his cup of coffee.
We're reassigning you to Antarctica, but we're gonna make sure that you've actually got a sleeping bag.
And then he comes back, and then something seems a bit off because he's suddenly like, "Hey guys, I need to do a blood test on everyone."
Hey, so
I saw some
story.
shit.
I found this thing. Those goddamn.
Wait, who goes there?
Swear to God.
Yeah. Oh. Thank God we don't have to deal with, like, alien abominations in Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah.
At least not yet.
Well, there's always a sequel, and remember, Nier started off with robots and then brought in aliens.
Or best case scenario, this just turns into Macross, and then we just use music going into space to bridge cultures.
To be honest, I think that's probably the next logical step for this series.
I think that's the next logical step, like, 2 or 3 sequels in. The next one I feel like still needs to be terrestrial in nature and maybe have more like scathing satirical political or not political business commentary. Like, say, having to deal with remnant fanatics that were still believers in Kale's plan, trying to set up shop in Europe, only to realize that they're not only being hunted after by, Chai and his friends to stop Spectra from surfacing, but have to deal with an even bigger threat, EU law.
That's weirdly, that reminds me a bit of the Danganronpa sequels. They go in some weird directions.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Ooh, that's something.
Yeah, it's there's lots of splinter factions that pop up that were big fans of the bad guys, and they decide, hey, I can do that but better.
Yeah, I mean, there's always got to be that. There's always got to be like those Xeon fanatics who are still Giran Zabi for life.
Yep.
Oh well, but regardless of what the future has in store,
You're actually gonna learn
I
how
mean,
to play guitar.
fuck, everything that we've seen of this game so far has still been like goddamn magical, and we're not even at the absolute end point of this Let's Play.
Yeah, this game is, in all honesty, a delight.
Yeah, it is a delight that keeps going, like at points when you think it would stop, but it never starts to feel like it wears out its welcome because it's ostensibly after the game ends.
Yeah. It's not like those films where the ending just keeps going and going and going until the credits finally roll.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
It's all yours.
So we get a reward from Macaron, the enemy analyze chip.
Oh.
It gives them health bars. So if you really wanted to fine-tune some of your jam overkill combos on certain enemies, that's a good thing you can use. I don't need it, but it's nice that it's there.
Yeah, again, it's surprising that it's not a thing that you get early on.
Yeah. And as well as like a new chip we can buy, high risk, high return. It's a glass cannon mode.
Yep.
Makes sense. As well as one that we can buy called the gear increase. Converts gears into more gears. Don't ask how.
Conservation of mass, what is that?
Mm-hmm. And of course, you can upgrade it to multiple levels that it basically gives you a 50% increase. But that's another one where I'm almost surprised it isn't made available at the exact start when the post-game happens, considering all the shit that you have to buy. Because I was close to 500,000 to begin with. When you know how to play this game, you don't really need that chip just to be loaded.
Also, I just noticed the Evil Within Tango Gameworks book on the table there.
Yep, Tango-chan still making appearances wherever he can.
Yep.
Yeah. So tune in next time as we show even more post-game stuff because this game doesn't end.